It held in the Industry Committee on the situation on the energy market 1 year after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. With us today, ITRE Chair Cristian BUŞOI, Madam Energy Commissioner Kadri SIMSON, and International Energy Agency Executive Director Fatih BIROL. I will first leave the floor to Mr. BUŞOI. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. I'm grateful to Commissioner Kadri SIMSON and to Executive Director of International Energy Agency, Mr. BIROL, Dr. BIROL, for being together with us today in ITRE Committee for a very interesting exchange of views of the measures taken by European Union during this difficult period after the illegal invasion of Ukraine by Russia, and of course what we should do next in order to be prepared for the future challenges also in the new geopolitical context. ITRE Committee was very active on the energy field. Is the key responsibility even before the war started, but after the outbreak of the war we have entered a period of extraordinary activity in this field because the energy supply was a central aspect of the war. Of course, it is clear that the world as we knew it has changed, and the weaponization of the energy by Russia has had enormous consequences in the world in general and European Union in particular. So we experienced challenges to the security of supply, rising energy prices. Of course, it started before the war, but this exacerbated the situation, infrastructure bottleneck, and of course we have to keep in mind the fact that the crisis is not over yet. You know that we are already working on the Fit for 55 package, and beside this normal work and finishing the legislative initiatives, we also discussed, debated and took action on the short-term and emergency actions, what was proposed by European Commission, the excellent measures. And once again, I would like to thank Commissioner Kadri SIMSON for the very good cooperation and congratulate her and her team for the good measures that helped us to avoid major crisis. I just give you an example, and I'm going versus the end of my intervention, that together with the Council, we defined obligations at EU level of mandatory gas storage. It had proved to be a successful tool to stabilize the volatility generated in the markets by Russia's war of aggression, and also make us to be prepared in case a sudden and total interruption took place. This happened very quick. In 2 months after the Commission proposal was sent to the co-legislators, and the cooperation with the Council was very good, and the negotiating team led by President Buzek was very efficient. Also, we played a key role in defining how member states could spend the RRF funds and REPowerEU chapter, and supported to make some RRF funds available to alleviate the effects on citizens and companies of high energy prices. Of course, we supported the Commission's and Member States' efforts to introduce joint purchases of gas to pool demand and give EU companies a better negotiating positions. We also proposed and supported the ban on further purchase of Russian oil and also gas, of course, gas via REPowerEU strategy, but soon we'll not have any gas imports from Russia. And we supported and encouraged member states to take all necessary measures to keep energy prices manageable, such as capping windfall profits, inframarginal pricing on electricity market, social welfare actions to directly support vulnerable citizens and SMEs. And now we are looking to the electricity market design legislative proposal. Next Tuesday it will be adopted by the College of Commissioners. This will be also extremely relevant and significant to help us to reduce the consequences of the war on the energy market in the European Union, but also will provide the necessary tools to our electricity market to be better prepared for eventually future crises. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. The floor to Madam Commissioner.
Thank you, and it is a pleasure to be back here in Parliament. And we just had a very good exchange in the ITRE committee on the first anniversary of the REPowerEU plan. And looking back to the past year, the Russian war against Ukraine, as well as the weaponization of energy, kicked off an unprecedented transition. The REPowerEU plan, our response to energy market disruptions, has enabled a huge shift in the EU energy system. And I shared with the ITRE committee our assessment of how far we have come in delivering REPowerEU, and the numbers speak for themselves. Let me give you the basic facts. Europe has dramatically cut imports of Russian pipeline gas down to around 20 billion cubic meters this year. And Russia is no longer the #1 gas supplier to Europe, it is Norway. Coal and oil imports are now banned by our strong sanctions. Even countries highly dependent on Russian gas, like Germany or landlocked Czechia, have announced that they are close to or have completed phase out of Russian gas. And one of the most notable changes concerns the EU gas infrastructure. In less than 1 year, we have greatly expanded the portfolio of 23 LNG regasification terminals. We have 8 new FSRU or LNG terminal opened or under development, and this will boost EU regasification capacity to some 227 billion cubic meters by 2024 from the current 178 BCM. Our total LNG imports were 80 billion cubic meters in 2021 and 135 BCM in 2022, going up 68%. But as important as diversification was our increased efficiency, reduced demand, and an acceleration of renewables. And I want to give you just 2 examples. Gas demand in Europe between August 22 and January this year has gone down for an amount equivalent to 42 billion cubic meters of gas. And the deployment of renewables reached an all-time high. And this has ensured that the European Green Deal transition has not been compromised. On the contrary, last year, carbon emissions dropped in Europe by 2.5%. And this is a positive track record, but it is not the end of the story. That is why today I brought to the ITRE committee 2 messages. First, we cannot let our guard down on gas security of supply. Common storage policy and coordinated gas demand reduction will be needed also for this year. And we may also still have a difficult summer ahead of us, not only winter, with high temperatures and drought influencing electricity production and consumption. So we are still in uncharted waters, and we must reinforce preparedness. And I'm going to propose to member states to prolong the voluntary demand reduction by 15% until next year. And this has worked well, and it is the best guarantee to achieve also adequate level of storage by November. And my second message was on renewables. Yes, we have exceeded our own goals, but this is not enough. High prices, disruption in supply chains, red tape, they are putting pressure on our renewables industry and putting at risk our targets for deployment. And we must do better on the renewable side to progress REPowerEU. So renewables, they are homegrown, cheapest and cleanest form of energy production. 2023 must be another record year of renewables, as well as the year after. Let me conclude with the following point. All the reforms of last year have been possible thanks to the unity of member states and the Commission, which have acted in a remarkable unity of purpose, from sanctions to energy emergency legislation. But this is also the result of millions of Europeans who have adjusted their lifestyles and cut down their energy consumption. Everyone has played their part. And I have also recalled to the committee our support to Ukraine's energy sector as a key part of REPowerEU. This will continue for as long as it is needed, for as long as Ukraine will prevail. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Birol, the floor is yours.
So many thanks. So it was a great pleasure to talk with the members of the Parliament. I made 3 points, dear colleagues. First, it is the first year, 1 year after the invasion of Ukraine by the largest energy exporter of the world, which is Russia. So what are the implications of that globally and also for Europe? And I said that unlike many people have thought, including those in Kremlin, Europeans didn't freeze and European economy didn't collapse. And what we have seen, on the contrary, that the Russian oil and gas revenues declined by 40% in 1 year of time. We have seen the European renewables, heat pumps, electric cars, they did all increase. We have seen that we have not had an accident of major blackouts, and again, unlike many people have thought, European emissions last year did see a significant decline of 2.5%, whereas the global emissions increased. So putting all of this together, Europe, a country that was having an over-reliance on Russia in terms of its energy, achieving these results, bringing the Russian oil and gas revenues down, increasing the renewables, heat pumps and electric cars, no blackouts, and bring the emissions 2.5 degrees down. I think it's a success, and therefore I congratulate all EU and EU institutions here. The second point, however, I made is that the next winter, winter 23-24, might be even much more challenging than the winter we have now, for a few reasons on the markets, but also maybe some of the governments are being overly confident because of the achievements we have this year. And I made some suggestions there. Third and final point I made, I suggested that the European industry is facing huge pressures, short, medium and longer term, for two reasons. One, the European economic model, which is based on abundant and cheap Russian energy supplies, is passé. It is over. It will not go back there. So European energy will be on the higher side compared to its competitors in terms of gas, electricity prices, with China, with United States and others. How we are going to build a new European industry, how we are going to design it. This is one pressure point. And the second pressure point is the world is entering a new industrial age, the age of clean energy technology manufacturing. Batteries, solar panels, windmills, electrolyzers, and Europe is today, in many of them, well behind than its competitors in terms of the manufacturing capacity and in terms of the legal context they have put together in incentives. And my appeal to my colleagues were, it is now time to come up with a new European industry master plan by looking at these two pressures. On one hand, the higher energy costs compared to your competitors, and the second one is how we are going to compete in the age of clean energy technology manufacturing with the major players in the world. So these were the 3 points I mentioned to Madam Commissioner, Mr. Chairman, members of Parliament and others. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's now question time. Priority to the room. First, sir, please.
My name is Rob Herbout, work for VRT Belgian Television. I have a question on the import of Russian LNG, which in fact has increased, notably through the port of Zeebrugge in Belgium. There was a doubling of the imports of Russian LNG. Russia is also using European facilities to transit LNG to China. And thus, Russia is still earning a lot of money through this export. Do you think Europe should consider a ban on importing and transiting of Russian LNG? A question to all of you.
Right now, we don't have sanctions in place covering Russian gas or LNG. But indeed, we do see that in 5 member states, the share of Russian LNG has increased. And this brings clearly reputational risk to the buyers from European side, because if some landlocked countries who have been very dependent on pipeline supplies from Russia really are in difficulty to replace pipeline gas fast with alternatives, then this is not the case in LNG market. And this is why I have asked ministers at Energy Council earlier this year to address this topic with their industry. And indeed, I do believe that there is no need to renew the contracts with Russian suppliers.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir, please.
Thank you for the floor. My name is Dmytro Shkurko, National News Agency of Ukraine. Commissioner, if I may, Ukraine, Moldova, and Balkan states are taking part in common purchase of gas. What volumes we are speaking about, and will it be enough to overcome the next winter? And to all the panel, as we know, tonight in Ukraine we have a mass missile strike, and the Zaporizhia nuclear plant again came out of the electricity grid. So that I understand it's mainly a question for international atomic energy. But anyway, what is your reaction on that events, and what kind of reaction could be reached in international fora on such kind of nuclear blackmailing? Thank you.
Please.
I have been in contact with Ukrainian Energy Minister German Galushenko, and later today we will have extraordinary video call exactly addressing this emergency situation in Europe's biggest nuclear power plant in Zaporizhia. We strongly support all the initiatives that would allow us to create security zone around this nuclear power plant, because occupying civil nuclear power plant is against all the international agreements. And as it is right now, as we said since the occupation started, creates very dangerous situations and might end in ecological disaster. On the gas joint purchase side, our joint purchase platform was open for all EU member states and energy community members. Indeed, Moldova, Ukraine, and Serbia indicated their need for next winter, and this is now part of our volumes negotiated. You can expect that in April there will be next steps on our behalf. But I think that it is not a secret that Ukraine has indicated that on top of their own domestic production, they might need for secure winter another 2 billion cubic meters. And we will be able to purchase this on behalf of EU member states and energy community countries.
Thank you very much. Yes, please.
Thank you, Stefano Porcello, MLEX. Commissioner, you said that European member states should not renew the contracts for Russian LNG, but there will be a formal proposal from the Commission to obtain this. It's yes or no question. And the other question, it seems, at least to the press, that the inclusion of nuclear energy in the Net Zero Industry Act is a little bit controversial. So what do you think, like nuclear energy should be inside the Net Zero Industry Act and so be facilitated in permitting? And even if the answer is yes or no, what do you think is the role of nuclear energy in the future energy mix of Europe? Thank you. I
think that at this stage, 5 days before we will present net zero in the stack. It's not important what I think, but it is important what will be a legal decision of the Commission. And I know that next Tuesday there will be a dedicated press conference explaining what was agreed. I myself, from the files that are under my responsibility, will respect the technological neutrality, and you can expect that this approach is clearly visible also in electricity market design proposal. Now about the contracts that European companies, and not member states, these are companies, private sector, who still do have contracts with Russian Gazprom. What will they do after these contracts will expire? I think that it is important that they will not renew them, because this also gives a clear signal to our trusted partners that by not prolonging contracts, we are limiting Russian ability to manipulate again with our markets. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please.
In the Bulgarian from El Universal newspaper in Mexico, Europe is looking for partners, and one of these partners could be Mexico. And Mr. Fatih BIROL, you were very excited of the reform of Mexico many years ago. Some years have been passed. I would like to know your analysis about this reform. And Commissioner, you look forward for further cooperation with Mexico in this field. Thank you.
Sure. Your excitement.
I think Mexico is a huge country and one of the cornerstones of the global energy markets, is a major hydrocarbon producer, but also huge renewable energy resources. But whether or not these resources, this potential will meet the market is a question of investment and having the right policies in place. Mexican governments made a good step in the right direction, but if you ask me whether or not they have achieved what the full potential is, my answer is not yet. I have to say that. If I can, dear Chairman, I want to make a point on the nuclear as well, that our colleague just asked. I cannot stop myself, because nuclear is a global issue. I can assure you that the nuclear around the world is making a comeback. In Japan, in Korea, in United States, in Canada, China, India, and Middle East. It is completely up to the countries to choose which option they are going to use. But in that respect, in my view, turning our back in Europe to nuclear power without finding from a cost and emissions perspective an equivalent alternative may not be the best way to go in terms of the competitiveness of the European economy. I think we need to think twice before making decisions in that direction.
Thank you.
The last question there.
Yes, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Right. Emanuela Barbiroglio from Carbon Pulse. I have a question about the Net Zero Act again, sorry. Do you think that will be enough or kind of enough to make the EU economically independent for its energy system? And how do you plan to fund it?
Thank you for this question, and I strongly believe that we have to support clean tech industry where Europe still has a competitive advantage compared to the other markets. But this cannot be limited to only these sectors, because in the path towards climate neutrality, we will need different technologies, and we cannot create new dependencies. So we have to cover also these sectors where otherwise, if we don't bring some of the production back to Europe, or if we don't diversify our supply routes, we will create new vulnerabilities. And financing is actually available already, but this Net Zero Industry Act is not addressing only financing, but also other bottlenecks, starting from permitting for greenfield installations, for example, and also this is a year of skills. So what we hear from clean tech industry representatives, we have to also address the shortage of skilled workforce. And all these aspects will be covered with this act. I hope that these sectors that we will cover are clearly the sectors where we have no regret to support them. Thank you.
If I may add just one sentence, clearly it will not be enough, but it's a major step forward, building on what we did already, Fit for 55, Repower EU. We need also not only regulatory measures, but also we need incentives, and the industry and also the investors in clean energy solutions are waiting for this initiative. As Repower EU has not only our strategy to phase out Russian imports, to not have any more Russian imports for fossil fuels and especially gas, because the others there is already a ban, but also will help us Repower EU to reach our climate goals, and will give to our consumers, to our population and to our industry better prices, more reliable prices, more decent prices and more stable prices in the future. And now the European Commission, we expect in the Parliament, will come with this kind of strategy that also brings more financing, because the financing is already there, and new incentives that the industry and the population, I'm sure, will welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We have more than exhausted the time that was allocated to us. If you have further questions, please get in touch. We'll find a way to give you an answer. Thanks for the interpreters, and have a very good afternoon.
Thank you.